Vern Riffe was the name of an Ohio senator, and he became Speaker of the Ohio House. And he was a big supporter of the arts. So when this building was constructed, it was always designed with theaters. Because of his support of the arts and his long service to the government, the building was named in his honor, and there is a statue of him on the landing coming up from the main entrance to the third floor. Basically, the patrons enter the building currently through the State Street entrance. There's a guard desk there. They're directed from there up the stairs that lead them up to the third floor, and then there's the escalator that brings them up to the fourth floor lobbies. If it happens to be a patron who has mobility difficulties, the guards bring them in an elevator up to the third floor, and from there they can come on the elevator up to the fourth floor. From there, they come into the lobby. To the left is our concession bar, which normally we have a Kappa bartender working, and there are various types of beverages offered and some box snacks. There normally are chairs and tables set up in the lobby where people can sit, and some benches. In worrying about social distancing, the tables and chairs will probably not be available, but we will have some various seating for people who can't stand for extended periods of time. We try to make people feel welcome. We're a small theater. We like to make it a more personal experience than you might find at, say, the Ohio or the Palace. Well, Studio One is the largest of the 3 studio theaters. All 3 of these theaters are designed to be set up in a multitude of ways.
Studio One is incredibly configurable. 90% of the audiences that see a show in Studio One are thinking, yay, I'm gonna go see a proscenium theater show. And that's great, and it's really cool that we have that, but it's also really fascinating that, that space was really intended to be a modular space.
All of the seats are on risers, which can be raised and lowered, so it can also be set up as a flat floor with seating on all 4 sides, sort of a tennis court kind of arrangement. For some things, it could be done in the round. We can use the balconies or not. Sometimes we take out a back row because of, say, sound equipment. Sometimes we take out the front row. It seats about 227.
Lighting-wise, we've got, I would say, in Studio One, probably about 200 dimmers or so. It is one of, I think, 2 theaters in town that has a tension wire grid, which is nice. So if you go up into the grid, you can walk around. You're not dealing with a system of catwalks there. And then over the stage, there are 2 motorized electrics. There are multiple bars. Most of them are dead hung. But there are 2 electrics that are motorized that you can bring in and out. So there is a fly system. It's not a counterweight system. So there are a multitude of bars up there, but they're generally done with the old-fashioned sandbag system.
Well, the first production I worked on was Avenue Q. That was done in Studio One. We've done other shows like Mothers and Sons, a show close to my heart, a Putnam County Spelling Bee, a version of A Christmas Carol set in World War II London, Life Sucks, which was a variation of a Chekhov play. So a number of those shows, sort of larger shows that we hope will attract a larger audience, we use in that theater. Studio 2 is what would commonly be thought of as a black box theater.
Studio 2 is probably my favorite black box space to work in. It is so modular. I mean, it is literally a square. And typically it's either run in the thrust or in the round. But looking at the space, it's like there is no limits to what you can do here.
This theater also has a lot of flexibility in how it can be set up. We have often used 3/4 round, having seats on 3 sides, but it can also be set up with seats on all 4 sides, so in the round. If it's set up with all the seats, it seats about 187 people. set up like this, it seats 157 people.
There are ports on 3 of the walls that you can hook up the light board and run it from down here. You can set up the light board in the grid, and if you had, for some reason, some bizarre position that you just couldn't see from the booth, or you could run it from our normal booth, which is great. We have, there are circuits in the ground. I think it's 144 circuits up in the air. The other nice thing about Studio 2 is when you come in and you look up, there's grid work all over the place. So there's a lot of places that you can hang lights from the grid. The other thing is, underneath all of the walkways is just lined with Unistrut. The abilities to put a light wherever is really good. When they designed the place, they really had a good idea of, let's make this as flexible a space to be as creative as possible.
And we are sitting here right now on the set of our more recent production, Moonlight and Magnolias. We've also done shows like Home was done here, Bengal Tiger in the Baghdad Zoo. My name is Asher Lev. A great production of Fun Home, which is a wonderful musical. You can do smaller, more intimate shows where you really can connect with the audience because they're right with you. It's a nice performing space, very small, very intimate.
Studio 1 and 2 both have ETC ion lighting boards. All of our Kappa locations all have ions. It is nice to know, oh shoot, this board went down. Well, you know what? We're a part of an association. I know the McCoy Center doesn't have a show going on right now. Maybe they can loan us their board. The show file will port immediately, and while we get ours fixed, and then we can flop them back the week later, and there will be no change to our actual inventory, to our show. It's smooth. All of our lighting here, and this is true of the Studio 1 and 2, it's all conventional lights, so it is more of a traditional theater feel. I would love to see Catco grow and start to bring in an inventory of LEDs and movers and kind of move that forward, especially since the board that we have is fine for it. They were purchased with the thought that we would have the room to grow and have a console that would work well with more intelligent lights.
Studio 3 is an interesting little theater. It was originally designed to be a dance studio.
Studio 3 it's a great rehearsal space, and that's what it gets used for probably more than anything else. I love the shows that we do there. They're small, they're intimate, throw some votive candles on there, get some stage lighting. You can really make it a cool, interesting space.
We've found that it's a lovely venue for little sort of cabaret type shows. We just did My Way, a wonderful Frank Sinatra musical review in Studio 3. Application Pending was done in Studio 3. We've done musical reviews like Forever Plaid, Forbidden Broadway, and at one time we've done a couple of holiday shows.
Of the 3 spaces, it has the most limitations. There is a grid in there. I don't think that the grid has ever truly been rated in how much we can hang from that grid, so we tried to go lighting light on there. We do have a few LEDs, maybe 12 to 14 LEDs. We definitely use those to just help color the space. I've done 2 shows in there now, and they are a godsend to give you some flexibility.
We set up high top tables around the 2 walls of the room, and those each have 4 chairs around them. And then we have about seven or 8 low tables on the floor, each with 4 chairs. And then we have a couple of banks of just chairs. And the actors often come off the stage and move around the room. And
I would love to see that space used more for, it's like, why aren't there cool small lectures that are happening there? Or like improv shows or small little like quartet shows or what have you. I hate to see spaces empty,
there are hallways that go behind all of the theaters, so you can walk backstage from Studio 3, past Studio 2, past Studio 1, and end up in the green room, say. That's where the actors try to relax, chill out, get ready for their entrances. Dressing rooms. We have dressing rooms that are designated basically for studios 1 and 2, and then we figure out studio 3 when we have a show in studio 3. There are the administrative offices, restrooms, clearly, prop storage. There are rehearsal rooms. The backstage corridor sort of dead ends at the freight elevator. So if you wanted to go down to the scene shop, you could take the freight elevator down.
The scene shop is right downstairs. You know, you don't have to, there's a lot of theaters that if they have a scene shop, it's clear across town. You always have to rent a truck and cart your stuff in. No, it's right downstairs.
So we have it's 7,200 square feet shop. It's about 24 feet to the bottom of the I-beams and like 22 and a half feet to the bottom of the ductwork. So we got quite a bit of space, but it really fills up fast.
It's a great shop. Again, compared to where I maybe have worked in previous to this, we have every tool I could think of needing. And one of the cool things about this with Catco is that when we don't have a tool, we have a good relationship with a lot of other shops and places in the community, and we can still get things done. And if not, at that point, we get to learn something new and figure out another way to do something.
We do a little bit of everything, from working with designers to working with the accountants to develop a budget for the shows, to ordering materials, to the actual engineering of how we take something on a piece of paper that was given to us from the designer and take that thought and fully execute it to something you see on stage, like what's behind us.
And we are sitting here right now on the set of our more recent production, Moonlight and Magnolias, which was a very funny retelling of the making of the movie Gone with the Wind.
It took us probably 8 weeks of construction thereabout, from the time we ordered the lumber to getting it into space, and then probably another 2 weeks of everyday work on it in the space. There's a lot of 4x8, what we call stock flats. So we'll build things in stock sizes. Everything that's behind the set, all the hallway walls, will go back into our inventory and be reused for future shows. But like all the molding was custom built and milled in the shop. All the doors were custom built and milled out to spec for the designer's needs. All the fluted door casing and the rosettes, all that is, it's not something you just go buy. Like we milled it to spec in the shop just for this production. We try to build and encourage designers to design in a format that we can reuse and have some interchangeable parts. But everything's so artistic and unique to each set that not a lot gets saved.
We have a storage building. It's pretty large. It's pretty full right now too, so it could be a fun project for all of us to get over there and go through it. We don't really use a lot of the same things over and over and over again. Everything seems a little more unique that way. So I think you end up with some storage. In
the Riffe building, so we have to build everything in a way that we can get it out of the shop door, which is 8'2" tall by about 11 feet wide, the roll door. And then we lose an inch for this random scab of drywall that's on the bottom of an I-beam. So we get down to like 8'1". And then we can either go out the loading dock that we share with a 31-story skyrise state office building, put it onto a truck off the dock, when we can get a truck in there, because we're sharing with all of the deliveries and all the maintenance crews and everybody that works in this building. Or we can turn left and go in the freight elevator and come upstairs to where we are now on the 4th floor or to the 5th floor to help load things in. They keep the floors nice and waxed for us so we can slide our stuff across it. I like that part about this building. We contract our services out to other organizations as a way to help bring funding into Catco. So for instance, like we have been building, I think this is the 6th season, we've been building for Opera Columbus. I act as the technical director for Opera Columbus, but that still generates revenue to the organization.
On the 5th floor is the costume shop where they construct costumes. There's costume storage. The laundry is done. The washer and dryers are up there.
Yeah, so we are currently in the workroom. This is like the office for the costume designer. It's also where everything is built. So we have a massive cutting table. We have supplies of fabrics. We have 14 sewing machines, stations to work at. This is where everything is built for Catco and Catco as kids. We also have massive storage here. So there are 4 very large rooms. The first one being women's wear. It's organized by period from 1890 to now. Then we also have a children's room that is full with like whimsical fantasy costumes and all sorts of things like that. We have a room full of military uniforms, and then we also have a men's room that has about 400 suits in different sizes and colors.
I feel that this building is somewhat daunting for someone with a handicap, a mobility handicap, and I feel really proud that we take great care with trying to help them and bring them in. Like sometimes we've actually brought people in through the back door of Studio 3 because it's faster and easier than wheeling them through a crowd of people who were already seated. It's honestly, it's kind of taking that extra step to help people. When there's a problem presented and we're able to solve it and everybody is happy. We've had occasions when people have purchased tickets online through some non-existent ticket site, but they've paid a lot of money. They have a ticket that is no good. When we can get them seated without charging them more, I really feel good about that. If we have a patron, and this happens, who comes on the wrong night, they're already here at the theater. If we have empty seats, we get them in.
It's interesting because it is in this like bizarre little sort of in-between spot where it's small but professional. These are spaces that you can experiment in, that you can really get expressive in, but also you can know your audience.
It's different every day. Some days I'm a welder, some days I'm an engineer, some days I'm an office worker doing budgeting and payroll.
You know, when you have a brilliant set designer, a brilliant costume designer, a brilliant director, sometimes it's hard to align those ideas. And we do a really, really good job of collaborating before the actors are even here. And then once we get to the execution of it, you can just expect excellence.
Being able to actually be creative is pretty amazing.
We're constantly like solving problems. Sometimes together, sometimes on our own in a corner. You know, Brennan, our lighting tech, will help us install a set, or we might help him run a cable run. You know, there's a lot of collaboration in the theater.
Anybody who's familiar with a small theater knows that you're probably going to be holding a prop or something like that, regardless of whether or not it's in your contract or what have you. And
we will work together to make sure that everything looks professional and well built.
You know, we have to compete with the big Broadway tours that I know there are a number of people who think that that's the only theater in Columbus. And that is really not true. Come here, you can see a wonderful performance that maybe you'll learn something, you'll get a different point of view, you'll be awakened to a new recognition of other people's problems and the challenges that other people face in life. And you're close to the actors. I mean, my goodness, you're just right there with them. So it's very different, a very different experience from going to the Palace or the Ohio.
it is right in the middle of Ohio theater, you know, because there's places that are bigger, there are places that are a lot smaller, but we've got a lot of resources to work with. So, yeah.